Welcome to BoucherCon 2020. I'm Rachel Housel Hall, and I am thrilled to be here with Kara Black, who I'll be picking her brain and learning more about her writing process and how she writes and the books she writes and France and sewers and all this stuff. And I'm so glad that you could join us. Let me tell you a little bit about Kara first. She is the New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of 20 books now, including the Private Investigator series, Aimé Leduc series, and Kara will probably tell me how to say that more correctly, but they're all set in Paris. She's received multiple nominations for the Anthony M. Cavity Awards, a Washington Post Book World Book of the Year citation, the Paris City Medal, which is awarded in recognition of contributions to international culture. The series has been translated into German, Norwegian, Japanese, French, Spanish, Italian, and Hebrew. So some languages, right? And Kara was born in Chicago, but has lived in California's Bay Area since she was 5 years old. So she is a naturalized Californian citizen. And Kara, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rachel. It's wonderful to talk with you and to get to spend some time with you virtually, even though we would be personally together up in Sacramento. So
yeah, I miss seeing you and hugging you and hanging out and going to have that party every year at the house and just hanging out. But hopefully we'll get to see each other.
We will.
So you
next
are
year.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I know.
You're a guest of honor. You're always a guest of honor in my heart, but today you are officially a guest of honor at this year's virtual BoucherCon. How does that make you feel?
I feel great. I really do. And I was so excited that this is a BoucherCon I could have driven to, 2 hours from my house. But now I get to do it at my house at Chamois. So, but I miss seeing everybody and having a, slumber party and, as we do, seeing everyone. So, but it's great.
Yeah, well, hopefully next year this time we will be together again, right?
Right, in New Orleans.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That was, and I remember BoucherCon in New Orleans a few years ago, and that was probably my best BoucherCon ever. I mean, between the eating and the drinking and the first line down Canal Street and meeting R.L. Stine, it was wonderful.
I know.
Yeah. So let's get to it. Let's talk about you. So before we go into your newest book, 3 Hours in Paris, let's talk about what you're excited about right now. What do you see and what are you excited about? You've written so many books. Are you still excited? And if so, what is it that you're excited about? And what, personally, of course, and community-wide, what excites you right now?
Sure. Well, I'm excited right now because I'm writing a new book, so that's always exciting.
Oh.
And it's really a wide canvas. My editor asked me to do a sequel to 3 Hours in Paris, so very excited.
Oh, wow.
I know. I don't know.
That's one of my questions.
So I don't know what's going to happen, but that's really exciting, and I love that period. So that's got me all, jazzed and excited. And the community, given, the pandemic and everything, actually, I probably get to talk to people, more other writers than I would usually if we just meet at conferences, though, it's a different kind of interaction. But I think the community has pulled together. I think what I should probably bring up is that 3 Hours in Paris came out in April, right when quarantine started.
Yeah.
Book tour went to virtual. And it was like, oh, this is the book, I've been working on for 10 years and now it comes out and it's just going to plop in the water and that's life, okay?
Right.
But amazingly, the book has gone into 3 printings.
Get
So
out of here.
who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Wow. That is exciting. I mean, you've been
Yeah,
writing for a while now, and this is a new
Yeah.
challenge for you. Has it stopped you from your writing? Has it made you change how you write? What's changed in your day-to-day writing life?
Well, I write every day, as you probably do as well. I mean, when you find the time, or what your groove is, or what hours you do. And I've always done that. I mean, I've been at home every summer. I'm just at home writing. But I think what's changed is that my husband is home, so that's kind of changed the dynamic. I'm
Right.
not alone.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say, what really concerns me this year at this time in our community is debut authors. I mean, just think.
It's already hard.
You or I, right, it's already hard. If you or I were a debut author, I mean, it's that hurts me. It's just, and I wish there was more we could do. And I've seen a lot of actually virtual events where we've done, people with new authors, and,
Right.
so there is that. I've seen you've done that. You and Walter Mosley did that with S.A. Coffee. So that's wonderful.
And for Mystery Rides of America, a few weeks ago, we did a panel, and the host was a debut author. So that was great that, he got to hang out virtually with all us old folks. So yeah, no, it's been different, but I'm glad to hear that 3 Hours in Paris is doing well. One of those copies were, I bought. That's me.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
tell us, for those especially who haven't cracked that book open yet, tell us about 3 Hours in Paris.
Sure.
Especially since it's so different in some ways than your Aimé le Duc. Is that how you say it?
Aimé?
Aimé.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's different because it's set in the first 2 weeks of the German occupation of Paris. It's a time when everything was in flux. There's very little documentation, actually, because the government skedaddled to Bordeaux. And Hitler came to visit for 3 hours. He came one time, he left. After 3 hours, he never returned. Now, he did not have a parade down the Champs-Élysées, which you would have thought he would have done.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was so strange, because why would this happen? And so in my story, it's based on possibilities. There were special clandestine operations run by the UK before SOE, Special Operations Executive. It was called Section D. It was a precursor, a clandestine. Everything was deniable, the actions. So I wanted to write about what if, because I saw this footnote about Hitler spending 3 hours, and 2 of the people that were with him, which you can see in the YouTube video, Arno Brecker and Albert Speer, gave 2 different dates for their visit, and they were with him. You can see this. So I was like, there's something there, right? There's some spin, there's some faux news, which Goebbels was a master of, which we kind of know today. So let's blame him. But there was something there. And I also wanted to write about women in war, which was very much forgotten. So Kate Reeves is an American.
Yay!
American from Oregon, born in the boonies, from a hardscrabble childhood during the Depression, raised by her father, and she had 5 brothers. And that's if anything will make you strong, it's 5 brothers.
Yeah.
And grew up on a ranch and learned to shoot like when she could walk. For survival, for food, because on the ranch there were wolves still up in Oregon in the 30s and 40s, and they were bounty hunters for that. So I wanted to bring every woman into a different kind of arena.
Well, that's my question. Why a woman like Kate and not the typical femme fatale type, the slinky? She's so different in some ways than Aimé. Yeah, I did it right almost, right?
Yeah.
Why Oregon? Why a big bone country ranch girl?
Right.
What was your motivation?
Yeah, that's true. Because when I've been writing Aimé le Duc, she's Parisian, okay? She's taller, thinner, chicer than I am, right? Kind of like how I would love to be, but I'm not.
Right. Yeah.
But I would aspire to be. But Kate, is an every woman. I can
Yeah.
really identify with her too.
Mhm.
And she's, as you say, a big bone gal. And what about
Yeah.
that? And why not? We're always throwing obstacles in their way.
Right.
How do you disguise gangly, not gangly, she's more for an American with her walk and her look? And how are you going to disguise that undercover, hiding out in Paris? Why not make it harder and what she has to do? So, but to me, she's an every woman. She's a mother, she's a daughter, a sister, a wife,
Yeah.
and we can all find that. And I wanted to put her out there and see what she would do. But I know from her character, which felt organic, is that she grew up on a ranch. And, I was on book tour up in Oregon, and I was thinking,
that's where Oregon comes from?
That's where Oregon comes from, because I
Okay.
wanted to put her in Wyoming, but I'd never been to Wyoming, so that wouldn't work. I was in Oregon. And my friend who works for the Historical Society said, there's a lot of people who came over, our descendants of frontier women who came over on the wagon trains. I mean, really.
Right.
And they all live, they have ranches and farms or dairy cattle or all this. And, there's so many women who kind of, their husbands died or went to war or whatever, and they had to run the ranch alone. And I was like, yeah, descendant of a frontier woman,
Yeah. So that's a challenge, her being from that world. What other challenges did you face when wanting to put this Oregonian and a woman into World War II France, where she stands out not only because she's physically big, but because of the language barriers? What challenges did you see, and how did you determine to either push those challenges away and say, it wouldn't be a big thing, or embrace them and say, well, that's just one more part of her story? You know what I mean?
I hope I embraced them. I mean, it was just like, because she's on a deadline. I mean, because there is a deadline to the German investigators, given 36 hours by the Fuhrer to find her. I mean, it's also heightened stakes, right? She's running for her life, getting involved in something else. There's no one that she can really trust. So there's all this stuff, which I think is true. But I think what is really interesting is that, I started doing a lot of research about the war, and now the challenge was to find women who would have done this. And of course they're there. Right. You just got to scratch. And they're there because women's stories are not top. It's always, sorry about men, it's men doing this, or men being spies or sharpshooters. Women did a lot. Well, but and so I wanted, what if you had to be a hero? What if I had to be a hero? We normal people, regular people, were heroes because they were called to do something and they rose to the occasion. However, they found reserves of strength, or they just made it work because they had no other choice. If you fall, there's one thing Kate's father says to her, like you learn on a ranch, you fall down out in the snow, herding up the cattle, and they get out of the fence, there's no one going to help you. You either lie down there and die, or you get up and you struggle and you do it. So that gumption, which I think in wartime, it brings it out, sometimes the best and worst in people.
Well, because I'm a masochist, I tend to read reviews, right? And I read a few of the reviews for your book, and they're overwhelmingly glowing. But, there are always those one or two that are like, rah, 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 rah. And one was a criticism of, this is so far-fetched, and the timetable, and blah, blah, blah. And it made me mad because, one, women do have gumption, and women have always risen to the occasion, and they have these stories and lives that aren't documented as well as man's. And also, it made me mad because there's some readers who will accept the on a clock type thing when it comes to a man. No one questions the Jason Bourne series. No one questions Ethan Hunt and the Mission Impossible. No one questions the series 24 with Kiefer Sutherland, but they want to come for this and say, oh, that's impossible. I mean, what do you think of any type of criticism like that? I'm sure I know, but let me get you on record. What do you think about that?
Hey, it's your opinion. You are welcome to it. If this book is not for you, it's not for you. That's fine. It's your freedom of choice. But I feel that women did do this. And I think I found women, I mean, when I started doing research, I picked this time because there's very little documentation, because people didn't know. Everything was in flux. So anything could have happened and did. So it's not far-fetched in a way, because it's plausible. Why did the two people that were with Hitler give two different dates of this visit, August 23rd and June 23rd and June 28th, or whatever? And why is that? I mean, and also, I mean, it's very much that in war, people lie, you know, and 80 of the documents of the Special Operations Executive and Section D, these clandestine documents, 15% of the documents survive. 80, you know, so 80, it was lost in a fire. Okay, lost in a fire, destroyed. So all the tales we don't know, and it's wartime. And people, especially if someone is in the field as Kate, she's not writing down, and then I did this, and then I met that man, and I had the S phone. Right. I mean, it's something that is lived. So, but I understand you can have your own experience, but I've been very upset that women have not had this role. There was a female Russian sniper who I sort of got the idea for Kate, Ludmila, who had 309 confirmed kills.
309?
Confirmed kills. Yeah. They said to her, how many Germans did you kill? She said, I killed 309 fascista. You know, she came to, 1942 or 43, she was invited to the White House and met Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt, and was taken around. So I was like, why did the Russians have a contingent or squad, or I'm sorry, I don't know what they call a regiment of female snipers, and we didn't? So I answered it with Kate. You know, but women could do these things. Women flew planes. Women did.
Of course they did.
The code breaking at Bletchley. But, you know, but again, everyone, you know, because we're so conditioned it's only men, but women had a role. And when I met a lot of female French resistance in their 90s, excuse me, they told me things they did I couldn't believe. It was no big deal. So I used a lot of that. Women are invisible during the war. Right? Yeah. Women are part of the woodwork. Old women are invisible.
Especially old women, yeah. As I, you know, passing 50 in
child.
So I love Kate, right? I love her, and she's so strong, like physically and mentally, and she is a force to be reckoned with, and she has this like big ass gun, but you still gave her a wound, which makes her relatable. So let's talk about Kate and her wounds. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that she had a family and it's taken away from her. Did that break your heart to do that? Why do that? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, why? The first thing with this character, I mean, her skill is shooting because she grew up doing that. To her, it's not anything special. But why would this woman go to Germany, or not to Germany? Why would this woman go to Paris? Why would this woman take on a mission that's a suicide mission? Why would she do it? Right? Why would you do that? What is she when she has nothing else to lose? Yeah. And I don't know. I was thinking if I had lost my family and I wanted revenge, you know, and I wanted to get back and I wanted to get even, if you ever could get even, I wanted to do something. I thought that this would give her the strongest motive. And yes, it broke my heart, but it's also, this is wartime. I mean, these things happened. People lost families all the time. And especially in Europe or here, or my mother's cousin from Chicago was stationed in the UK. And he was on one of those, I forget, the big planes that were all glass, and they dropped bombs in Italy.
Oh, like Enola Gay, that like those big ones,
The big regular bomb, not the atomic. Okay. So he would go on bombing. He was stationed in the UK, bombing mission to Italy. And of course, as a little girl, I always knew there was something different about him, but I didn't know till much later. He was on his crew. He was the bombardier. He was the guy in the back that dropped the bombs out of that plexiglass thing. And but they were supposed to fly out to Italy to bomb, and he was really, really sick. So he didn't go that morning on mission. They never came back.
Oh.
And there was always something about
Wow.
survivor's guilt or
Uh-huh.
whatever. And I'm sure so many people, maybe even in your field, people have stories about that,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
war touches people. And you don't walk away, but you also need to keep moving to survive and move on and, get new jobs and raise families and make your life. So there's things like that that I think doesn't leave you. I also, the one time I went when I was in London years ago
Mm-hmm.
and met this man. It's a huge long story, but we were talking and he took me to this one little place, not now, but before, that was open all night. You could have coffee and tea in this little, it was like a little caboose thing. It was very strange, not like now, but, and I said, how do you know about this? And he goes, well, I don't sleep at night. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, yeah, well, I was in school and our school was bombed in the playground and I was the only one that came out of it. And
Oh
I
my
can't
gosh.
sleep at night. So he's up all night. He was like roaming London. So anyway, but so
That's a
there's
story right there. Yeah.
yeah, but people do have to cope. They have to survive. And I think what could happen to her that would make her do this, make her feel she has nothing to live for? Because a lot of people who did these jobs might have been in the same position.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
she was young.
interesting. As an aside. So one of my favorite movies is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And for those who have no idea what that movie is, and I don't know who that would be because it's one of the best movies ever. Richard Dreyfuss's character believes in that aliens are on Earth and blah blah blah, and he ends up getting on the spaceship. And I remember reading an interview with Steven Spielberg, who said that he wrote that screenplay before he had kids, because if he had kids, he would have never gotten on that spaceship to leave his children. So that made me think of what you were just saying about the wounds, and where we are as writers kind of also reflects on what we have our people, our universe do. So that was just an aside. That's a bonus.
That's a great comment. Yeah.
Okay, so let's keep on with the wounds. And of course, a lot of wounds come from our parents, and even, directly and indirectly, there are ghosts of parents who are no longer there, like moms, as well as actively alive paternal figures. So in both your series and in 3 Hours in Paris, you have, motherhood. It's lost, it's found, it's reconciled. You have in 3 Hours in Paris the old woman who kind of adopts Kate, but then she's taken away, right? In the Aimé Leduc novels, the last one especially, she's trying to reconcile with her mom, and her mom disappears. So part of her search and hunt for that novel is around her mom. But then there are the fathers who are very much there, very much involved in their daughters' lives. You have Kate's dad in Oregon, who taught her how to, basically be a woman. And you have her handler, Stepney, who was a paternal figure. Did you go into, writing these stories with thoughts of parenthood and how mothers and fathers shape and scar their children, or was that kind of a bonus thing?
More towards bonus. I think that's what I realized after I wrote it, and that's what my editor told me. You're writing about families, and I went, oh yeah, that's
I guess so.
I guess so. Yeah, that's why I have an editor who tells me my themes. So,
right.
So yeah, it's sort of come about. I have to say that my mother passed away October 2012. So just now, the day I was going to BoucherCon in Cleveland. I know, 2012. And I remember it just happened, and I was like, when she'd been ill, we knew this, but of course, the end you never expect. But when the doctor came and I said, okay, everything's handled, I have to go take a plane to Cleveland. He goes, what? What are you saying? And I'm like, well, I have to go. I'm on a panel. I have to, I'm like, I can't, and he's like, wait a minute. you know, your mother just passed, you know. I said, but everything here. And he goes, you need to stay here. And I'm like, but, and then my editor called me and she said, you're not getting on that plane. You're staying there and it's fine. Don't worry, everything will be handled. But I was like dog paddling. I was trying to move forward, right foot, put one foot forward to keep normal, right? To run, whatever we do in grief, you know, so I understand that. And I think that's a human reaction. We don't want to deal with the loss of anyone. And we're just trying to keep moving, you know, which of course in war you can do because you have to.
You have to, right.
Yeah, you have to go to work in the munitions factory, you have to shoot somebody. But I think that human, right, you know, as you do.
Yeah, shoot somebody.
But I think the wounds always stay with us. And when I first started writing years ago, I was taking an art class in paper making, which I love to make paper. Yeah, and it was so interesting with natural fibers. And so there was, we all had a project, right, at the end of the class, and we made something. And I don't know what mine was, but there was a woman whose project dealt with this, and it was more from an idea from her. She said, this came to me because I lost my parents in a car crash when they were in a car and I was 8 years old and they never came home. And she said, I realize now that this project, my art project, however it was, deals with that loss. And she was in her 30s. And I thought, you know, that's really true. That is something that, as you say, scars, and it's always there, but you have to keep moving. And I thought with Aimée Leduc, her mother would have left her when she was 8 years old for reasons we discover. Maybe they made a lot of sense or whatever, but her father was there. So I thought, what's thing? And also, I'm sorry, even though I'm tired of people being, you know, having alcohol and drug problems, you know, so I wanted her wound to be different than just to be an alcoholic. I'm not saying that I don't read those, but I mean, I wanted something, it was fresher to me.
Right. Now that, as I hear, Kate will continue, will you be playing with that idea more as we watch her longer deal with the loss of her being a mom and what that means for her life going forward? I can't remember, is her dad still alive? Kate's dad.
For that book, yes.
Yes, okay, so.
Yeah, but they can't, you know, even, the letters take months, you know.
Right.
So, but he's always in her mind because her mother died when, you know, in childbirth for the youngest brother or whatever. So yeah, and I mean, they didn't have food a lot of the time too. I mean, there was a scene I wrote that made me think of, you know, in the Depression, the hobos around those bonfires and railroad yards, which also were in France, you know, because they had a depression as well.
Oh, that's right. I never thought about it. I thought it was a uniquely American thing.
But so I really thought when I was writing the scene near the butcher's yards where that was very much what it would have been like in Oregon. But I mean, people had a hard time. You know, there were a lot of things, and I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but I have to say, we now, I mean, in wartime or in certain times, you don't have the luxury to grieve or to feel guilty for what happened. A lot of times you just don't have, they would call it luxury. You don't have time to think, you know, you've got to keep going.
I agree. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a more exciting question. What was your favorite scene in 3 Hours in Paris? When you got to it and you were writing it the first time and then you went back to revise it, which scene was that you're like, good job, I did a great job with that one?
Can I have two?
Yes, I take two.
Okay, the first one I really loved was when she was learning in her brief spy tutorial about how to put on makeup from the Shakespearean actor.
Yes.
I love that because
I like that scene.
Thank you.
I could actually see it in the movie. If ever a movie or series comes out, I can actually see that.
Thank you. Because
Shakespearean singing in the background.
Yeah, Shakespearean actors, cat burglars, they taught spies how to function and do disguise or get into things because they're the experts in their field. But I love thinking that a Shakespearean actor would just say, you know, I'm on the stage maybe in 3 roles a night. We've got to do quick changes. We've got to do this and that. You're a big woman. Let's do this. Use it, whatever, you know, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah.
It's also, I hope from that scene was coming across, you need to believe it and other people will believe it too, right? If you're a spy,
Yep.
you got to act it, believe it, breathe it, and it will come across. If you're like, they pick up on it.
Well, that's our lives as writers, right? Sometimes that imposter syndrome takes over and it's like, okay, no, if I don't believe my story, then who will? And you just force yourself to, I call myself a socialized hermit because a lot of me just wants to sit over there and be quiet and read books, but you can't do that anymore. So yes. So what's the second scene?
The second scene was the butcher's warehouse near the canal.
Yeah.
Where she has to arrive on a cart and horse.
Yeah.
And has to deal with butchers who are actually in the resistance speaking this argot, and she's trying to like, I need help, and that came from a true fact, which I had to put in the story, that butchers, you know, in France especially, you know, when they would get the horses and cows and all the cattle would come to the big train yard, they'd go and take them to the slaughterhouse, the abattoir, which is where this was. Because they didn't have refrigeration then, remember? People used big cubes of ice. So it had to be fresher. But butchers had their own slang and they would talk to each other, you know, to hide things, whether they're ripping a client off or not, or, you know, whatever. And it was an argot, kind of like, what do you call it when you switch the syllables?
Pig Latin?
Like Pig Latin, kind of, yeah. Like a pig, thank you, Pig Latin-ish. And during the resistance, they used that butcher's argot and no one knew what they were talking about. The other French people, of course, the Germans didn't know, but there were some people involved in the resistance, butchers, whatever, that used that language. So they could say what they wanted, you know, and hide people or pass people on or provide a, you know, I don't know, safe haven. So I wanted to use that because butchers did, you know, everybody did something.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and that was huge.
Right. So this book was it took your breath away because it was a constant, she's running. Very different from your other novels. Was it hard kind of switching this style, this kind of thriller on a time clock type thing? Was that difficult to do? Well, it was very un-French where, you know, I've been to Paris twice. And going to dinner in Paris is like 12 hours because you're just kind of like there and you take your time and they're like hours between courses. So it wasn't very Parisian in that sense for me. It was very, we gotta go. It was very, in some ways, German, you know, a very quick and on time and bustling and busy. Was that difficult to kind of switch off?
Well, I would put myself in Kate's place and thinking when I was in Paris, what if Nazis were chasing me? I would keep moving.
Oh, sweet Lord.
Yeah. So I was always, there's Nazis. I mean, you can't get away from that. But I have to say what was a challenge was that I felt when I started writing Kate that I was having an affair, you know, away from Amy. And just kind of
with this woman all this time and now here this, yeah. That's great.
So I felt unfaithful for a little bit. So that's why Kate had to be very different and, you know.
Yeah.
So that,
I like that.
That was kind of more of it, you know.
Yeah.
I loved having a ticking clock though, you know, because I've listened to so many wonderful thriller writers. I love reading thrillers, reading mysteries. But there's something about a thriller and I'm like, yeah, could I do that?
So will this next one be also a thriller in that same sense? Where
well,
countdown?
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to talk about it because I just started and I don't know. Yeah. But I would think she's still having a mission or has a new mission or, you know, it's wartime or not. I mean, you know, there's so many avenues for her. So it's true.
So you mentioned, you know, you felt like you were having an affair on Aimée.
I was unfaithful.
Do you think they'll ever be in a novel together? A menage a trois. That's awful. But You
You mean
started.
having the one who I had the affair with together with you? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, but do
Well,
you think they'll ever cross paths? I mean, they are there at the same time, right?
well,
They're
Kate's in the 90s. I mean, Amy's in the 90s. So
right.
it's quite a
Okay.
bit later. Well, she
That's
could be an old woman. She
well,
could,
but I was gonna say Kate could be an old woman with lots of secrets. I mean, she has a lot of secrets. I'm
definitely.
sure especially as time goes and whatever next book she'll be writing, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
I like
Okay.
it. I like that. I like that, Rachel.
So thank you. Thank you. You can have that one.
Might use
So
that. Can I use that?
yes, you may, because I mean, that's always especially as the women around me are getting older and I'm becoming, the parent of a teenager, and women have secrets. My next book that I'm working on, right now is all about secrets and finding out things you didn't know about your parents when you were growing up and your own secrets that you've kind of kept from people. And so old women with secrets is always ripe for, for great stories. So,
And also, just to say on that, that
uh-huh.
generation kept secrets.
Yeah.
Especially maybe now we're much more, social media. That generation did not talk. Kate signed the Official Secrets Act, as all the women at Bletchley, men, and everyone signed it. Bletchley Park. You don't talk about this, and they
Yeah.
didn't, even
Yeah.
until now. Or it came out after they died. There was a woman in Bristol, older woman who passed away, and she didn't have any friends or if anyone knew about it. They went to her house, and people were like, we don't know. We don't know about her. They're going to bury her in the pauper's grave in the cemetery. Someone opened the drawer, and inside was a Croix de Guerre, Legion of Honor. This old British spinster who had these medals from the war, and they found out she had been in this big resistance network. She had been to Ravensbrück, actually put in a camp, survived, came back.
Wow.
Never, but she was a secret agent, when people say they didn't, women.
Well, that goes back to what we were just talking about earlier, that what are you saying? It's impossible. You have no idea what women do and what women have done.
Right. And they never talked because they believed that. So when people found out, sadly, if we'd known, we would have, they of course buried her and, whatever. But it's so sad. It happened after she passed away. But that was the way they were. You don't talk about it. It's the way it is. So secrets in families, like your maybe generations in your family, people like about my mother's cousin. I never knew about that. I never knew that he was bipolar, what we would call bipolar. We didn't know, and all these things. People didn't talk about that. So.
Yeah. So before you started this book, you said it took 10 years to write?
At least.
So you go to Paris a lot. Did you go to Paris specifically at the start of your writing this book, or did you already use what was in your head? So how does your trips to Paris fold into your writings?
Well, I have to go to Paris because I have to do research, right? The best part of my job. I just have to go.
That's the best part. I need to write a Parisian character.
Yeah. So anyway, when I started writing the Amy Leduc books in the 90s, I was staying with my French friend, and the first story, Murder in the Marais, came from her. Her mother was a hidden Jewish girl in the Marais, a true story, which I fictionalized. And the next one happened in Belleville. I was staying with my friend in Belleville. Her daughter and my son were about the same age. And anyway, they all just kept going. But every time as I was researching that story, which again was in the 90s, and it was about Paris at that time, there would be a neighbor who had lived there during the war. There would be, I don't know, the shopkeeper who had numbers tattooed on his arm that no one ever talked about. He just handed you the vegetables and you saw it.
Yeah.
It was everyday life. These people lived during an occupation. Okay, I mean, we have not, so we don't know, but it's different. They were invaded and occupied. And they're not all Jewish people. I mean, there's all kinds of people, but I went to the market with my friend's mother, right? And we were going to go and get stuff for lunch and make it. She was going to teach me how to make this French dish. And I had been reading about all this nouvelle cuisine and they were taking rutabagas, you know, those big ugly root things, and they're making it in these really, you know, hipster restaurants with the foam and the emulsion, and it's all.
Yeah.
And I'm going, yeah. And I'm going, oh, let's go do that. I saw that. I want to go. She goes, right, and she goes, never. And I go, why? She goes, that's all I ate during the war. I'm never going to eat one of those again. I can't stand the smell. I can't stand the texture. I'm like, right?
Yeah.
Who knew? So, I mean, that's everyday life. They don't talk, I mean, they only talk about it when it's brought up. But I'm saying that kind of stuff is imprinted on the psyche. As in our country, at least in my family, the Depression was. People suffered, right? I mean, and so that's our psyche, and their psyche is different, which is amazing. So I can't separate it from what I hear, but I was always writing it down. Yeah. And I was writing down about this time, and everywhere I would go, I would turn, there would be bullet holes, there still are, bullet holes in the wall from World War II. I mean, it's there, okay? You can feel it, you can touch it, you can smell it, you know? But it's a modern city, and Paris is not a museum, but there are remnants. So on top of that, I was always writing everything down. And then then it was like, okay, there's the Amy notebook, and then there's that other notebook. And all this stuff, you know, the man at the vegetable, it just went in there because it was amazing. Yeah. And I met these French resistant women who I could take an hour and tell you about the stories I heard from them in Lyon.
And I believe
I just started writing it. I mean, she's gone now. She's passed away. I'm so glad. I took notes. So all that stuff, I can't separate it. And then, so I was always then I started to sketch something out. But I'm always working on Amy because I had a contract, you know, and I was stuck in a book. But I would, you know, do that. And then I would put something in, and my editor goes, this is great, but it doesn't really, fit the story, you know. Yeah. So it's like, but save it.
But it's great.
It's great, but not here. So I had a lot of those things. And then it was 3 years, maybe 4 years now, when I was, again, looking at that. I had some time between turning in the next AMA, and I started looking at my notes. You know, I always do, and looking at it, I'm looking at what I'd written. And then I found this footnote, literally, you know, a footnote in a book, right? And it had about Hitler's 3-hour visit to Paris. Now, somehow I never knew that he went for 3 hours, he never returned. And I was like, what? So I went on YouTube, and I started, you can see him on the tour, and I could see all these things. I could see what Paris looked like, deserted. Right. And then I read the memoir of Albert Speer, who was with him. He wrote a lot, but, you know. And then I read Arno Breker, the sculptor, the two men, and I went, wait a minute. This is a week apart. To the day they died, they both said this is true, and they were friends. So I went, there's something. Is it me? I mean, is this like Josephine Tay, the daughter of time, or something? I mean, there's something. Is no one seeing this?
Something's happening.
And I was obsessed. And I told my editor, she said, get it going. Write that. You've got, you know, go with it. I was obsessed. Then I had to do it.
Yeah. Well, and that's something for younger writers who think just because a story isn't working right then means the story's dead. You've been collecting, squirreling things away and not even realizing what it was ultimately going to become. So lesson, there it is right there.
Yeah, it germinates, it pollinates, it festers.
Yeah.
Right? Right, it bubbles up.
Yeah. Who is Kate in your mind as an actress? Who did you cast her as in your head? Who did you see her as?
Originally, I don't know if I think so now, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't, Titanic, isn't Kate Winslet a big woman, a big bone gal? Nothing, you know, gorgeous, but.
She is, but I don't know if she's tall. She is kind of like, she got some meat on her bones, but I don't know if she's, like if you combine her and Charlize Theron together. Because that's who I like, a taller Kate Winslet. That's why I actually kind of, I agree.
That works. You know, I mean, and what is fascinating to the people who say this is implausible, and I won't keep harping on that, but there was
because it stunts their own growth as readers, and it also isn't, you know, insulting to, you know, half the demographic of people, you know.
There was a real a real American spy who's even more unbelievable, Virginia Hall, which people can read. There's a book, I can't remember the title of it. It's a great book. She had a wooden leg, and she ran a whole circuit, a whole network in the south of France, and was never caught. And later went to the CIA. Yeah, and she looked like a grandmother. Maybe that was because she was invisible. She was a matronly looking woman with a wooden leg, and was the head, an American, and ran a French circuit that was the most successful. Now, people the book came out about her, and it's like, this woman, you couldn't make that up. Right?
No.
But sometimes your implausibility can be your cloak of invisibility or whatever, right?
Well, who would have thought 2020 would have turned out the way it did? If either you or I had written this, our editors would have said, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. That possibly could never happen. So, yeah. So I have a few more questions. One of which I don't think I've ever asked. The sewers, the Parisian sewers, how did you happen to go into the sewers of Paris, and what led you there, and why? I understand why you want to go, because everyone knows there's this thing about Paris sewers, but you actually did it. Tell me about that.
Yeah, and I didn't go on a tour. I did not. I went with a friend. But Rachel, bring your boots, okay? Bring your boots. Okay. Because yeah. So I have a friend who's a specialist in underground Paris. He's taking me to, there's not just catacombs, there's quarries, limestone quarries, and there's different levels of tunnels, right? The metro, the fiber optics ones, and all these, anyway, there's several layers. So I said to him, because it was when I was writing Murder in Passy, about the 16th arrondissement, the very chic. I said, I seen the chic, I want to see the dirty part. Show me the sewer under the 16th. And he laughed at me, he said, yeah. So one day, seriously, I'm on the bus, and I was going to meet friends for dinner, well, he calls me, and he goes, meet me at this boulevard, at this thing, right now, if you want to go in the sewers. And I'm going, well, I have to go. He goes, now or never. If you're there, you're there. So I got off the bus. I ran to the corner of the boulevard, near the Champs-Élysées. No, actually, just the other side. And there he is, big boulevard, right? And I'm like, well, how are we going into the sewers? In his sleeve, he had a flannel shirt. He had a crowbar. We go right to one of the manholes, whoosh, pulls it up, and he goes, are you coming or not? And I'm like, okay. So we climb down in the middle of the pavement. People just walk by.
I was going to ask, are people around?
Yeah, they didn't care. So we just go right down, those little metal things, and we start going, and then we start going, and then we have to go down more because it's the water level. And then we're going around, and there's the pipes, and there's rodents down there, rodents, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. And we started going around, and then we were walking, and he goes, yeah, and this goes, you could get lost, so you could never come out. So stinky too. So there's all these pipes and stuff, and then I'm going, oh my God, I have to go to dinner. So after that, we climb up, right? And he lets me out up at the top. I jump in a taxi. I get to the restaurant. It was in Montmartre. Yeah, right. I walk into the restaurant. I'm so sorry. And everybody goes, you've got cobweb in your hair. You smell funny. And, and I was like, ugh. So I had to go to the bathroom and try and wipe everything off in my shoes and everything. But so wear your boots. But so it was cool.
Was it worth it? Well, that's my question. Was it worth it? Did your life change? I'm not necessarily as scared as rats. I'm thinking of all the roaches.
I'm sure they were there, but I didn't see them. What more interesting, what really gave me pause were the limestone quarries. There's all these tunnels that are dry, even temperature. People have parties in them, and I've been in those. And there's these hidden springs. Those are amazing.
Hidden springs?
Hidden springs in the quarries, because Paris is built on limestone and gypsum, and so they hollowed out all those beautiful sort of caramel colored Haussmann buildings. They just hollowed out the ground and built them. So you got to be careful.
Yeah.
How sturdy they are.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So last question. You've written 20 books, countless essays. I know you have written all this stuff. What more is there for you to say? I know you're working on the next Kate Reese book, but is there a book that you want to get to before, you know, you put the pen down? What do you want to say before you stop, if you ever stop?
Yeah, I don't think about stopping. I think about the stories, so many stories I've heard in France or Europe, stories that need to be told. And I think people like us are sort of, I sort of take it as an obligation to try and tell these stories, to illuminate something that we don't all know about people we don't know of. And I think for me, the thing that's always guided me is that on a metro in Paris, on the subway wall, right, in the metro wall, there was just, you know, there's always graffiti, and there's this graffiti once in French, but it was like, true heroes stay anonymous. Oh. And I thought, right? Yeah. That there's so much about, whether it's present day we're writing about, it's not, you know, whether it's the past, whatever. But I mean, I think the true things, really, I want to give voice to people who haven't had a voice, I guess. Yeah. And as long as I feel that, and I have the energy to do it, that will guide me in whatever form. But right, you want to give voice to someone who might not have it. Yeah. And there's so much we don't know. And I'm also very happy that there's a lot of books coming out about World War II with women as protagonists. So fiction-wise, and I love them, so I don't care. Yeah. You know, whatever. Yeah. You know.
As we're winding down, tell me what else is coming out next.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I have a short story in the anthology edited by Lee Child called The Nicotine Chronicles, published by Akashic October, and it's set in World War II, and I got to use more of what I love, what I obsess about, World War II, and I have of course, it deals with cigarettes and smoking and bombs. So, you know.
Your favorite things.
My favorite things, yeah.
So no date yet on the next Cara Black novel? We'll have to just wait and see?
Well, the next Amy LeDuc should be coming out. Oh! Yeah, I did that. I've done that.
Okay, that was a lie. So this is the last question. So what's the next book about? And when is it coming out?
2021. My editor hasn't. Well, anyway, I haven't got the edits yet as of now. It's set in the 15th arrondissement, which is one of the largest arrondissements in Paris. It's the size of Bordeaux, the population. Amazing. Yeah. It's it deals with. Oh, gee. I don't know. We sort of start off with a bang.
Uh-oh.
The book starts with a bang, hint, you know, like a literal bang. That's all I can say, Rich.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for you know, being you and being someone, you know, I look up to, and I think you're just incredible. And I think everyone watching this right now thinks you're incredible.
I think you're incredible. So.
Oh, and I miss you. And so I'm looking forward to the next in the series. And I hope everyone out there in BoucherCon land either picks up 3 Hours in Paris, or picks up one of the, or all of the Aimé LeDuc series, and pre-order for the next one when it comes out. I want to thank BoucherCon again for giving me the honor of letting me talk to my dear friend, Cara. Cara, thank you so much for joining me here on this Saturday morning. And any last words before we head out?
See you next time. I can't wait. You and everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Sam is offering me the BoucherCon Local Guest of Honor Award. Thank you, everyone, so much on behalf of the BoucherCon committee, on behalf of Rachel Housel Hall and every other person at BoucherCon and all the readers. Thank you so much for this award. See you next year in person.